Good afternoon. First of all, very happy to be here and see everyone. My name is Nir Kol from SAP. Ido with me as well. I'm the product owner for what is called SAP Web IDE. And just 2-3 sentences before we go into the Theia specific topic, just about SAP and why we're interested in Theia and our use case. So first of all, we don't see the slides here, so it's a little bit, take a while to adjust. SAP, it's a company that's experts in enterprise software development. We have about 430,000 customers, 95,000 employees, 17,000 partners, and we are developing software that goes into verticals for 25 different industries. Revenue last year was $28 billion, 24 billion euros. 92% of the 2,000 largest companies in the world are using SAP to run their business. And 70% of the world's transactions revenue is floating on various SAP systems. And 100 plus development centers around the world. So when we talk about things like connecting companies and business to business, there's about 2.7 million companies that are running on our Ariba network that connects business companies to do business with each other. The amount of transaction going through the Ariba, which is just one product on SAP, if you combine Amazon and eBay together, that's larger than that. What SAP is driving is larger than that. Producing beer, almost everything that you touch in your day-to-day is somewhere running on SAP business. Okay, even iTunes, Apple iTunes, at the backend, it's all SAP infrastructure. Now, all these companies, okay, when they acquire SAP systems, there's many systems for running your HR, financial, customer relationships, suppliers, and so on. At the end, every customer takes this system and usually extend them and build on top of that processes and solution that fits their unique business needs. And that means that when we provide the system, we also need to enable them to get an environment that they can extend, they can easily. Okay, most of them are not IT companies. They can be plumbers, they can be shipping companies and so on. Their IT usually is not massive, it's not their core industry. And we need to be able to enable them to develop quickly, efficiently, and focus in their business domain. Okay, and that's why for us, providing an IDE that can fit both professional developers, but also non-developers or different use cases like developing workflows or screens, it's critical to have the versatility. So until today, we had a product that's in GA for 4 years called SAP Web IDE. We'll show a glimpse of that as well. And we're looking for the next revolution of this product, and Theia and this direction looks very promising to us, and that's why we came here today to learn and hopefully get more involved in that. Okay?
Okay. Okay, so I want to touch about our journey, as Nir discussed early on 2013. We started Web IDE, which was a project for UI development. It was based, the client was based on SAP technologies, and the backend was Eclipse Orion. So it was a combination, and it was for UI development of SAP tools and extensions, but it was only for UI development. So the IDE was for JavaScript. We didn't need back then to compile or to build. Even NPM wasn't very popular in the UI community, something that just started at these years. So this is the beginning of the journey. Okay, and later on, we actually decided to expand on the things we do, and we wanted also to touch on the backend to extend our solution, as Nir said. So full stack development is what we called it. So we needed to support Java development, Node, alongside the UI development. And for that, we needed better build technologies. So we started working with Che 3 on the backend. And we expanded the Web IDE capabilities. For example, we added the language server protocol support to our Web IDE client. It was in 2017, I think. We also started to support the debug adapter and stuff like that. But we encounter a glass ceiling, let's say, that the technology was proprietary. We always needed to invest in the core functionality of the IDE. We needed to invest in editors and support more features of the language servers. Developers didn't have the community, so they can't install extensions like, for example, the brackets extension. So we needed to develop everything, or to make our IDE more extensible. And basically, this is not our domain. Our domain is to support the business applications of SAP, and this is what we wanted to touch on. And we didn't want to always invest in these basic generic IDE capabilities. This is not our domain. The change that we have made, we decided to go with more open environment. We needed to upgrade our Che environment because it was based on Che 3, and Che went on to container-based system, and our system wasn't. Also, Che stopped supporting the backend that we used, because we used our backend was based on Orion, later on Che file agent, and Che didn't need to support it because it switched to Theia. So this was also one of the reasons that we didn't have any backend. And all of these reasons together gave us some push to rethink our solution and think if we can basically shift from the old Web IDE to a new solution, which is based on Theia and new versions of Che, and underneath with a lot of cloud technologies like Kubernetes and the cloud providers. So basically, the motivation for us was to improve the dev environment, to provide a better support for the professional developers with feature parity of leading IDEs, with community extensions. We want to focus our investment, invest in the differentiators, meaning our own technologies, and not in a generic IDE. But another motivation we had is maintain past investment, because we have a lot of investment from 2013 up until now. That's a lot of extensions and plugins for our Web IDE, and we needed to maintain it. Another thing is we wanted to be aligned with the SAP strategy. We needed to create some coherent development experience, not every group at SAP to provide different tools for different IDE. We wanted one cloud IDE that actually look and feel the same. And it was important to us that the delivery will be flexible. I think this is something that Reddit also discussed, for example, with the reason you go to the plugin model instead of the extension mechanism. So the flexible delivery is something that was really important for us. Okay, so here I just want to give you the feeling of how much content we had and what was the effort of moving from the old Web IDE, the SAP Web IDE, to a new platform based on Theia. So we have a lot of extensions for Web IDE with a lot of code, and this was obviously a very big gap for us to even start to work on. So if we wanted to do this shift, we needed to find a solution that will take all of the past investment and bring it to the new solution. So before I go on, I want to show you the SAP Web IDE, the old one. I'm not going to get in all the details, but just let you understand what the gist of what it is. So for example, I will create a new project. So you can see that we have a rich wizard experience. Sorry. And in few clicks, I'll get a new project with Java backend, a database, UI, all connected and can be deployed to our Cloud Foundry, which is the runtime of the application. And the developer have a very nice experience. Just a few seconds. Okay, so we have here a database and the Java module. They are both connected to each other. They are effectively a single project. We have our technology, for example, to describe the data model using some SAP technology, which is called CDS, for example. So we have syntax highlight, we have LSP here in the backend to provide all of this language server support. And we also have a lot of other tooling. For example, we have a YAML file here, but we don't want our developer to always edit this YAML with the code editor. So we have basically a form editor for this YAML file. Which is really big. We also have a lot of other editors. For example, we have a UI view, and this UI view have a WYSIWYG editor, which can provide the developer drag and drop experience. So we have a lot of tooling. Actually, I don't see here the right. Okay. So we have database tools. We have other views of the tooling. We have a lot of tools in the Web IDE. I don't want to go into all of the details, of course, right now, but as you understand, this is a lot of things to move to a new platform. So our migration approach was actually provided into 3 options for each extension. We decided to have all of these 3, depends on each extension and how easy it will be to migrate and what is the right approach to migrate this extension. So first approach we call the embedded approach. Basically, we run the Web IDE inside an iframe in Theia. And basically, we hide the file tree and the menus and open the editors in like full screen inside the iframe. And this is the embedded approach. I'll expand on it later. We have the hybrid approach, which basically we run the backend logic. Of course, it's a UI logic, but it's the backend, again, inside an iframe and create new UI experience based on Theia, which will have better look and feel for the user. And we have the native approach, which basically is rewriting or taking what we have that can be native Theia, and I'll explain it. So the embedded approach, basically, we took Theia, and as I said, we ran the Web IDE inside an iframe. And what we needed to do is to create some kind of adapters for the Web IDE. So for example, we have a service called document service, which basically enables you to edit the document, save it, and etc. So in the old Web IDE, this service was going to the backend to API and save the files. Here, we needed to create this adapter that actually talks to the Theia APIs to save the files. And other examples of such adapters are commands for menus and dialog adapters. So if we had a dialog for the user, we wanted to open the right dialog in Theia. So if, for example, we have a question for the user, if we continue to run it in the iframe, it was centered in the center of the iframe, of course. It didn't look on the entire screen, so we can create an adapter that actually uses the Theia API for creating a dialog, which will be a native experience with the Theia right CSS fonts, and it will be centered, and it will provide the user the correct experience. Okay, so the hybrid approach basically means that we combined the approach of taking the Web IDE business logic. For example, the templates that we have that creating the new project. So we can take the same templates, which basically is a zip file, and we have a template service which knows how to generate from this zip file a project. And we can create a new UI. In this example, it looks like the old one, but it's a matter of a decision. And the idea here is it's a new UI. We don't have limitations of this iframe and where it runs. It's an iframe in the size of 0. It's hidden, but the UI is new. And with this approach, we can use this new UI even with some new template mechanisms, for example, like Yeoman. So we can take the same UI, the new UI we have. Sometimes for old templates, we can use the old template mechanism from a Web IDE. And we want to create new templates, for example, with Yeoman. And this way, we can migrate the business logics step by step, once at a time, and the user will not be aware of it, or even the developers of the templates are not aware of it because everything runs. But if you create a new one, then we have a new model that you need to create a Yeoman template and not go to the old Web IDE style. Again, this is an example of a way to migrate the extension, but it's not just for templates. And another approach is the native approach, for example. So as I showed earlier, we have code editors that was based on LSP. For example, our CDS, which is SAP language. So it was pretty much easy to migrate. Other SAP technologies, for example, UI5 is a JavaScript library of SAP. In the old Web IDE, it was hard-coded into the client, the support for this language, because we created it before LSP was even a thing. So here, because it's a JavaScript library and there is support for JavaScript, what we did is create a DTS file for this library. And then we got the same support that we needed to always invest in all the Web IDE. If there was new features of our library, we always needed to update the old Web IDE to support these new features. And right now, we basically update a DTS file, which we try to generate from this library. And hopefully, it will be much easier. Also, native technologies is command line tools. For example, we have several command line tools that SAP provide for all sorts of build technologies that we have. And these command line tools was pretty much easy to migrate. And what we do, we can use the terminal, of course, to run these command lines. Or sometimes we create a VS Code native experience with the quick inputs that actually works with the command line in the background. And this way, we can easily migrate the extension as well. So I want to show now a demo of the new Web IDE. So this is a version of Theia, I guess, which is a little bit older. So here we have the Web IDE. So I want to show you a project creation. So if I go to File, New, Project from Template, basically this is a new UI that we created. It's not the old Web IDE UI. And what it does, it generates these templates from Yeoman. So each of these templates is a Yeoman template. If I click on this, I have a wizard which generates automatically from Yeoman. So for example, if I run here Yeoman, you can see that these same 3 templates are installed on the container. This is the generated artifact. And now I want to show you, this is the XML view of the UI. And what we did here is we added the layout editor. So this new tab actually runs an iframe inside of it. And in this iframe, we run the Web IDE. And as I said, we hide the menus, etc. And we have the adapters to actually talk to Theia. So we have the same experience that we had before for this editor. The developer of the editor didn't need to change anything in his code. It's basically the same. the other developer which developed this framework, which actually is the same person, didn't change the old code. He only needed to create this adapter for file system and stuff like that, but basically it just works. And we gained a very interesting capability. So for example, the old Web IDE didn't have a split view of editors. It's something that a lot of our users requested, and it was always in our backlog, but we didn't have the time to invest in this. Was a generic IDE capability, which was hard for us to implement. And because of Theia capability, we can now have the same basic experience of editing and seeing the result inside of the text editor side by side. And this is actually a very requested feature for Web IDE that we got basically thanks to Theia. Again, I can show also example for our language servers. So if I have our CDS technology, so you can see that it was very easy to take this language server, wrap it in a VS Code extension, and just use Theia, and we have this extension. And actually, we have even more because our LSP implementation wasn't very generic in all. We didn't support the protocol for everything. For example, we didn't have a generic outline. So if you had a CDS in our solution, you didn't have an outline. So now we also have outline and all of the capabilities, of course. So because the old Web IDE didn't have it. That's it. So any questions? Yeah.
Hi, great presentation. I have a question. What is the main reason you decided to move to the new IDE?
So there was a lot of reasons. So first of all, our technology was very old. It was from 2013. It wasn't really updated along the years because we didn't want to invest in these core IDE technologies. We always wanted to invest in the scenarios, editors, and stuff like that. So the technology underneath became very old and hard to maintain. Other reasons was that the IDE basically required us to always invest in features of IDE that we didn't want to invest in. We wanted to create this CDS editor and the WYSIWYG editor and a lot of other editors that I didn't show you. But we always got requests to add new IDE features, which was hard for us to maintain. So we needed the opportunity to do it, but again, we needed to save the past investments because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. So we needed to figure out a way to do this switch without losing all of the investment.
Worth mentioning that the original IDE was mainly focused on UI development. Now that we're getting into more complex scenario like full stack development and integration, workflow between many systems and so on, the old IDE was not built for that. So now we need to, also from a use case perspective, to look at more complex scenario and additional personas, developer persona, like professional personas, not only UI developers.
So the backend, we have to replace it anyway.
Yeah. So
we have the backend based on Chat3, and replaced it. We had to do something else.
yeah. So all of the Web IDE actually is client only. It's browser only. And we had the backend. First it was Orion, later on it was Chat3 without the GWT client. But once Che got to Theia, we didn't have a backend. So we needed to either take the old Java backend of Che, which we didn't actually wanted to run inside containers because it's resource hog, and it was another reason. So we had a lot of reasons, but we needed to find the cheap way to do this migration. Otherwise, it wouldn't be.
That's all the investment in the backend. Andreas, we talked about 2 container per user and stuff like that. We have tens of thousands of developers using the system every month. Okay, 2 weeks ago we had a training about UI5, one of the technologies that Ido mentioned. There are more than 30,000 registered developers for this training. So the scalability of that and the performance, the stability is something that I think we're taking it to the limit. So really something that we are learning a lot, and this is a real challenge for us to scale in such a way, but also the type of persona coming to the system and trying different things. So there's a lot of learning that we'll be happy to share with the community as we go. This product, what we're seeing now on Theia, it's not in GA. It's not available to customers. All of the users are using the old Web IDE still. We are in the process of migrating, learning, and so on. Hopefully, we want to be, releasing to customer by the end of the year. But for that, we need to be in a very good state for product readiness. Other questions?
What is missing from a Theia perspective to deliver this product readiness? So is there some issues which you struggle?
Oh, okay. Issues, well, I'll let Ido talk about some of the challenges that we see with the IDE itself. But as I mentioned, first of all, scalability to build all these Docker containers and let them scale to concurrent large amount of users concurrently. And then I think from the APIs and so on. So Ido, maybe you can elaborate more on the challenges that we're facing.
Okay. So first of all, the first challenge was that we began exploring this before the new plugin mechanism was available. So it was very hard for us to work with this model because same as Red Hat problems, it wasn't really scalable for us to do it. So once this model became available, it was great, but we need to develop, we need to migrate our extensions, but it's still not 100% ready. So for example, we want to have a tree, but there is no buttons on the tree or stuff like that. And this is the things that we always encounter. For example, we create an extension or take one that already does something in the lines of what we want, but it's not working perfectly. So we need to understand what we do with that and how we support it. I guess this is one of the main challenges here. Yeah, I think this is one of the largest one. I'm not sure everything is an API. Maybe some. I know that, for example, our user experience guys also complain of stuff like why does the dialog is at the top and not on the right corner or stuff like that, which is not API. But yeah.
Also, you mentioned a couple of times that you don't want to invest in the kind of the generic IDE thing. But do you have some sort of plans to like do a little bit of investment into the common thing?
No, I think it's not accurate. So what we do currently, okay, we have, as I mentioned, a product out there in the market with tens of thousands of users per month, okay? There's many groups in SAP. We are a small group that's building the infrastructure, and above us there's different line of business and technology like the CAP, the Cloud Application Programming. It's a technology being written by a different team in SAP. One of our role is to enable them to bring their content in. Now we want to change technology, okay, and leave the old proprietary IDE and move to something that it's much more advanced, flexible, and modern. And in order to do that, we need to shift quickly by the end of the year and enable everybody, not only us, but all the other teams in SAP to bring their stuff over as well. Okay, we cannot go GA if we don't have almost a feature parity with all the different capabilities, because then nobody will come, and then also from commercial, legal aspect to suddenly offer a new version that doesn't support all the old technologies or the existing technology in the Web IDE, it's a challenge. So our main focus currently is to bring everything over, because otherwise we're stuck. We stopped almost investment in all features of the old product. We are still maintaining, and there's few commitments that we put there, but the majority of the team moves now to this new version. And we first need to bring everything over before we can then settle and then look at, okay, of course we want to contribute to the community, want to help. I think there was already few items that we contributed just to kind of start the process and get to know Theia better and so on. But from priority-wise, until the end of the year, it's definitely something that we have a very hard time migrating all these hundreds of plugins that we have that are SAP specific, okay, in all different technology from SAP. But if we commit to something like that, a technology like that, then of course for the long run we have to stand behind it and help it become more mature and keep up to pace. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
There is a lot of difference between creating the entire idea and maintaining it by ourselves, or helping the community and be part of it. So it's different.
Do you have the stock version?
The what?
The desktop version?
Currently not.
We're piloting.
Yeah,
We're looking at that.
we're playing with that. One of our main ideas is that we provide a turnkey solution, which means we provide the entire stack. The Electron version is not something that can work for us. We will need, if we want to offer some desktop version, we will also need to have Docker running and connect to it or something like that. So.
The entire concept, maybe last statement from that one. The concept of turnkey solution for us, it's a must-have, which means that we identify the best practices for different scenarios, SAP scenarios. For customers, when they come over, they have different needs, okay? Whether it's developing mobile or developing just UI or developing a full-fledged application, and there's various scenarios. So we're looking about creating 20 different container types, each one tailored for a different scenario that customers are using. And then based on the scenario, we'll point them to the right environment, the container, and also the IDE will come pre-loaded with a set of plugins that fit their scenario. So for mobile, we might need emulator there in the container and so on, but also a mobile development kit pre-installed inside Theia. If you go to develop the Fiori UI, which is the SAP standard for all application, then the layout editor that you just saw to develop the Fiori UI, it's something that will come preloaded. You don't see it in the mobile, you see it in only the container there. A different example like that, but it's also a very different use case and different persona for different use case that we need to aim at. That's where the rubber hit the road, right? That's real users, real customers, real time, adding on that. Okay, thank you.